Hey everyone, it's Lane with Tim's Nation. I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about the DeathGuard list. I'm taking into DJ's Grey Knights this evening. So it's very similar to what I ran last week. Almost exactly the same. All I did is swap out one of the carnivores for a Hellbrute just to see if his ability to shoot something and put it into contagion range is going to be useful. Now, the Grey Knights have a lot more shooting. I think it was pretty well established last week that this Death Guard list has the ability to really tank close combat armies between their fight first and they have damage reduction in combat, that sort of thing. They can really tank a lot of damage from close combat armies and slap them back pretty hard. My concern now is how well this performs into something with more shooting in it. And while the Grey Knights isn't exactly an entire gun line, they do have a lot more shooting than the World Eaters. But I mean, that's not saying a whole lot. Everybody's got more shooting than the World Eaters. But that's what we're going to be trying today. So hopefully he's got some Nemesis Dread Knights to put into me, some shooting to put into me. I want to see how well I take that and then obviously get into combat with him. Now, his movement shenanigans, his ability to bop away with Mr. Demos is going to be key because I'm going to be trying to get into combat with him. So I'll have to try to engage in multiple areas, into multiple units, because he will have the ability to just pick up one of those and move it away. And of course, the sigil will be less valuable to him in this game because I'm mostly going to be trying to get into combat with him. But yeah, the Mr. Demos makes things tricky for my close combat based army. So we'll see how well it does today. I'm going to go through the list here. Like I said, not much has changed. Just dropped one carnivore, added one Hellbrute, and we'll see how it performs. See if I do anything different with my characters in this game as far as which units I put them with, as far as with the Death Shroud Terminators. Yeah, I'll make that. Well, I guess we'll talk about that after we do the list. Here's the list. Here we go. All right. So today's Death Guard list, we have 2,000 points exactly. I did one of the enhancements, the droning. I'm absolutely sure I'll forget about this. This is one where I do like one mortal wound if an enemy unit fails a battle shock within 6 inches of the character. I'm sure that will be forgotten about almost immediately. But we do have two 10-man bricks of Plague Marines riding around in rhinos, which is why we have two Biologist Putrefiers and two Foul Blight Spawns. So the Biologist Putrefiers do a couple key things. First of all, they give the unit lethal hits and lethal hits on 5-up. That's both in shooting and fighting. Much more relevant in fighting because I'm going to have a ton of close combat weapons on my Plague Marines. Next, the other thing it does is it lets one of those units will be able to throw grenades for free every turn. And being able to do a few mortal wounds is very helpful in this army, especially because between the mortals from grenades, typhus, maybe a tank shock here or there, it definitely has the ability to put some damage onto tougher units. And last week's game against the World Eaters, Angron, took a lot of damage from my mortal wound output, being that I had a couple different sources for that, and that was a big deal playing into him. Biologist Putrefier also has a decent gun, too. It's a little Hyperblade grenade gun, so they can do a little damage with that as well. Then we have two, like as I said, two of the Foul Blight Spawns. The Foul Blight Spawn has a very good anti-infantry 2-up flamer that's 2 damage, so it's a good attack for that. Makes his unit kind of an Overwatch threat. And then also, his big thing, of course, is the fight first. He gives his unit the ability to fight first, which is huge when we're dealing with getting charged. Just the ability to have that and to do that damage before my opponent gets to is a big deal. Next, more characters. We have 2 of the Death Guard Sorcerers in Terminator armor. These guys, they can go solo. They're strong when they go solo. They're also strong when they're paired into Death Shroud because they can give their unit -1 damage in combat. But they also have a once per game super strong shooting attack. So they're ranged weapons. If we look at the Curse of the Leopard, their ranged weapon, we do the Focused Witchfire. This is the one that's hazardous, the stronger one. It's 2d6 shots. It does hit on 3s, strength 6, AP 2, 1 damage. However, once per game, he can actually take that and bump it up to improve the strength and damage characteristics by 2. So then it becomes strength 8, AP 2, flat 3 damage. That can be really strong. Obviously, it's going to rely on the 2d6. Got to get those 2d6 shots. Hopefully get a roll good there. But that once per game can do a lot of damage, especially when we're looking at Grey Knights and Terminators, that sort of thing. We can do some work there. So And their other ability is when they're leading a unit, start of the fight phase, I roll D6 on a 2-up. That unit takes reduces damage by 1 in close combat, which can be very helpful against the Grey Knights because they do have a lot of attacks coming in. Their attacks are really strong in close combat, but there are a lot of 2 damage attacks. So reducing them to 1 will really cut down on the amount of damage they can do to me. Then we have one Lord of Virulence. The Lord of Virulence, he lets his unit reroll all wound rolls when they make ranged attacks. So I'm going to put him with a big 6-man brick of DeathGuard Terminators because they have anti-infantry 4-up flamers. It'll be a little tricky today because I'm going into Grey Knights. The fact that they're AP 0 is kind of a hindrance. We'll probably be taking the Contagion that reduces their armor because the entire army has 2-up. Although reducing their weapon skill and ballistic skill would be strong because they don't really get any inbuilt hit rerolls of any kind. It would be strong and make a difference there, but I think I'm just going to have to go for killing, and we'll see how that performs today. And the Lord of Virulence also has a pretty strong flamer attack as well. And then the final character is Typhus. Typhus, for 80 points, this guy can just deep strike by himself. He's really tough. He's a Terminator, toughness 6. Hard to kill because he's got a 2-up, 4-up. He's got 6 wounds. And he makes his unit -1 to hit when he's leading a unit in close combat, which can be strong. But he also has a psychic attack where he can do some mortal wounds. That's really nice. It's really consistent. When he can just within 18 inches, he picks a unit. He rolls a D6. On a 1, he takes D3 mortals. So we're not going to roll any 1s today. No 1s. On a 2 through 5, the enemy unit suffers D6 mortal wounds. And on a 6, they take D3 plus 3. So another good mortal wound output for the army. Then, as we talked about, we have 2 10-man squads of Plague Marines. My Plague Marines, I've got 4 guys with the heavy plague weapons. I've got 4 guys with the bubonic weapons. So the heavy plague weapons are strength 8, AP 2 damage. They hit on 4s, 3 attacks apiece. The bubonic weapons are 4 attacks apiece, hitting on 3, strength 5, AP 2, 1 damage. So a lot of attacks. It's very nice that they all get the AP 2. And that'll help a lot today with the high armor saves. Then there's 1 guy with a plague spear in the unit, just to get a little bit of flamer hits. And the sergeant has a plasma gun and also a heavy plague weapon. So there's a total of 5 heavy plague weapons in these units. I forget what their rule is. What's their rule, guys? Because it never comes up. When they're in range of an objective marker that I control, battle shock test, you add 1 to the test. Great. I will forget about that immediately, and it will never come up again. Then we got 2 DeathGuard Rhinos. The Rhinos are great because they can pack in 12 models. So I've got my 10 Plague Marines and 2 characters in each of those units. They do have firing deck too. So when those guys are in there, I can put a couple flamers out, including the Foul Blight Spawn's super strong flamer. The nice thing about the DeathGuard Rhinos is that if they survive that initial step when they drop off their Plague Marines, then they're really useful for zipping around, doing actions, and for spreading the contagion. They're DeathGuard units, so I can advance them up the table once they've dropped off the Plague Marines, and their contagion will allow me to improve my chances of harming my opponent. Next, we do have 1 10-man of DeathGuard Cultists. The Cultists are being played by Poxwalkers tonight, but we are using them as Cultists just to get that scout move. We do have 1 DeathGuard Hellbrute. This is a change from last week's list. The Hellbrute is here just to put things in contagion. So this is useful for a couple reasons. First of all, his special rule is that if he shoots something, or when he fights something, he puts that thing into contagion until the beginning of my next turn. So technically, he can put 2 things in contagion. The fight thing goes without saying just because he's going to be close to it. But even if he dies, that thing will still be in contagion range until the beginning of my next turn. Now, shooting something, he can shoot something and put that enemy unit into contagion, which makes it -1 toughness. And in today's case, it's going to reduce their armor value by 1. This is super helpful, especially because I have War Dog Carnivores involved here. They do not give out the contagion, so in order for them to benefit them, I have to have either a DeathGuard unit close to the model they're attacking or shoot them with the Hellbrute. Hellbrute has the twin-linked heavy bolters on there, so he gets 3 shots. We just hope one of those hits. It's the most number of shots. It's not a super strong gun, obviously, especially in today's matchup, but I just need to tag something with it. And the other benefit here we have is the other weapon we have is the close combat power fist. Slaps pretty hard in combat, and his special rule does also allow him to do some impact mortals when he charges, so he can do a little bit of work in close combat if it comes down to that. Then DeathGuard Return. We've got 12 of them. One 6-man brick and 2 3-man bricks. DeathGuards are great when they're led by a character. They're -1 the wound. They're already T6 as it is. 2 up save, 4 up embalm. They slap really hard in combat, really good in combat, and they have a flamer on there. The sergeant's got 2 flamers. They're anti-infantry 4 up, and they ignore cover. No AP on there, but for 1 CP, I can put some AP on them. And that's going to be very relevant as we reduce DJ's armor save on his Grey Knights. The trick with these guys is obviously their mobility. They can deep strike, which is cool, but they only have a 4-inch move. So I'm going to have to be real careful how I use them. If I can rapid ingress a unit, I will. Other than that, we're just going to be getting on the key spots and hopefully holding there, because it's really hard to chase down the incredibly mobile Grey Knights once these guys are deep struck and on the table. And then finally, we have 2 War Dog Carnivores. I love these guys. 140 points for a model that's got a 14-inch move, rerolls its charge rolls, slaps pretty hard in combat. Doesn't, can't web. It's not really strong enough to pick up like an entire squad of Space Marines, because its strike attacks, 6 attacks, hitting on 2s, wounding on 2s, but you'll roll a few 1s in there. But I think there are a great piece for getting out and getting on objectives. Again, 14-inch move is huge, allowing me to do actions early on in the game, and then just really tying up my opponent. I'm hoping that they benefit from the putting things in the contagion range with the Hellbrute, although they'll probably be going after things that have invulns, either Terminators or the Dread Knights. So yeah, I'm not sure how much that will actually matter. I don't know. Now, I'm talking myself out of it, guys. I don't know what I'm going to do. Anyways, that is the list. Okay, those are our stinky, dirty boys going up against the noble Grey Knights. I'm concerned about being shot a whole lot before I can do anything about it. I do have a lot of defensive abilities. For example, Cloud of Flies, making me -1 to hit, although a couple of DJ's units will be ignoring any modifiers to hit rolls. So we'll see how much that comes up into play here. The armor reduction is going to be a big deal for Grey Knights, because they rely a lot on their 2-up armor. They're an elite army. Making their armor go to a 2-up, from a 2-up to a 3-up is going to be a big deal. My strategy, I'm not even sure what I'm going to pair, what characters I'm going to pair with the DeathGuard, because the Sorcerers and Terminator armor, their ability to solo deep strike and do damage and shoot is really strong. However, I know that later in the game, the damage reduction that they offer their unit is going to be a big deal in close combat. So they will probably be paired up with DeathGuards. So I think we're going to have Typhus go solo. He's so useful because he can deep strike in. He can do an action and still do his mortal wound attack, because it's not a shooting attack. It's just an ability. I was talking about that. We'll see if that actually happens in today's game. But yeah, follow me over to the battle report. We'll see how these guys do.